Hello everyone and welcome to the 2016 Quaker State 400 at Kentucky Speedway race review, where I recap what went on before the race, during the race, and after the race, looking ahead to the upcoming race. So, overall thoughts on this race. I'm going to say the same thing that I said last week after Daytona, and that is I'm not 100% sure how to feel about this race. Coming into this race, there was a lot of talk about Kentucky because it got a new surface. It also got a new configuration, and so the race was predicted by some as to be a wild card race, and I felt the same way too. You know, I remember saying last week about how I think coming into this race it was going to be a wild race, and certainly I think lived up to that. But there were also some things that I think just fell short of expectations, and I'll get into those in more detail later on in this video. So that's why I'm not 100% sure on how to feel about the race, but I will say this race will not be forgotten for quite some time. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that. As far as the winner of the race, Brad Keselowski wins for the third time at Kentucky, fourth win this year, has now won 2 in a row because he won last week at Daytona, and really it feels like the way Keselowski won this race was it felt like a complete opposite of Daytona, because Daytona obviously he had a dominant car. He won the race based on speed and having a good car, and then at Kentucky he didn't exactly have the best car all night long, but then he got better and better. But then at the very end of the race it became a fuel mileage race, and many drivers I think actually did not get the fuel tank completely full at the very end because they expected another caution with the caution came out with 70 laps to go, and that was just outside fuel window 64 to 67 laps, and yet somehow Keselowski was able to save enough fuel, and not many drivers were able to go all the way to the end without pitting. So this was definitely a hard-earned victory by Brad Keselowski, whether you love him or hate him. And right now, it just seems like that Keselowski and his two team, they're on a really good streak, and I expect that streak to continue heading into the upcoming races. Another hot topic entering Kentucky was NASCAR bringing back the even lower downforce package, as I like to call it. And this one was used in Michigan less than a month ago. I think this package still has potential, and I think we'll likely see this package in 2017. In fact, I would like to see NASCAR go even a step further and combine the All-Star race package, which had reductions of side force and skew, and just sort of mesh that one with this even lower downforce package, mesh it together, and then if that happens, then 2017 is going to be an even better year of racing than what most of 2016 has provided. So, but anyway, back to the main topic here. So they brought it to Kentucky. And while I do think that it is the future, it did not get its best just showing at Kentucky. But it doesn't really have anything to do with the package, but rather just the fact that Kentucky got a new surface. New surfaces. Goodyear brings hard tires that really wear. A new surface. It becomes a single groove racetrack, and that's what we saw today at Kentucky. I didn't see anyone trying to move up the racetrack in order to pass outside of the first 2 laps out after a restart, obviously. So unfortunately, we're going to be stuck with these hard tires in narrow racing group for the first couple of years, but then hopefully maybe 5-10 years down the road, Kentucky becomes a great racetrack. And for a long time I didn't really care for its old configuration, but obviously, really for the first time, I actually missed it, because obviously with the old configuration, drivers were able to go from the bottom to the top. Watch last year's Kentucky race, and you'll see what I'm talking about. So even though I think this package is the future, it didn't get its best showing last night at Kentucky, but it has nothing to do with the package, but rather the racing surface, and we're just going to have to wait a couple years for Kentucky to become a great racetrack again. When you repave/reconfigure a racetrack, what can you expect? A lot of crashes, and we certainly saw that here at Kentucky. Many of them happened for different reasons, though. Some were because drivers just simply got very loose, got out of the groove, usually the usual product of bringing hard tires and the brand new surface. Others were because of drivers using the brakes more than I think what the teams expected, and that's why these tire failures happened. It certainly shaked up the chase picture a bit, because you had drivers like Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney, and a couple other drivers near that cutoff all get into trouble. So if one driver makes a chase and another doesn't, we could look back to this race as a wildcard race. Also, we had a huge, maybe not a huge melee, but a big crash down the backstretch shortly after a restart, and it took out many drivers. So definitely a wild night at Kentucky. If you didn't watch the race, or maybe aren't even an NASCAR fan at all, there's a chance you might have heard this storyline, and that was a fire broke out in the parking lot outside of the speedway, and many people in the grandstands stopped watching the race and took pictures of it. NBC certainly caught it as well and showed it a couple times. A truck caught on fire. Now, I don't know how this truck caught on fire. I haven't read the latest story on what happened to it, but I'm assuming something inside the truck ignited and it caused the fire, and then it just erupted into flames. The fire truck arrived minutes later, and the last time I can remember something like this happening during a sprint cup race was the 2013 Kansas October race, and NASCAR had to throw a caution because the smoke from the fire caused visibility issues. But I do feel bad, and what a tough break for the people who own that truck, and also the people who own the vehicles nearby the truck that also got some damage. Taken from Racing Reference, which I consider to be a reliable source, here are the point standings and chase grid after Daytona, and right here are the point standings and chase grid after Kentucky. So if you notice, Kentucky did shake up both significantly, which really I don't think a lot of people were expecting, in my opinion. But at the same time, it doesn't surprise me to see Kentucky shake up the point standings, because repaves are definitely anytime a track just got repaved, I think it becomes a wild card race regardless of what kind of track it is. So as you can see, if you go back to how the chase grid look, Ryan Blaney was the last driver safe, but now it's Jamie McMurray. Obviously, because McMurray got a 7th place finish, Ryan Blaney got in the crash where Chase Elliott finished outside the top 30. And really, I think the point standings for the bubble drivers like Ryan Newman, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Austin Dillon, Jamie McMurray, Tyler Redmayne, Casey Kane, Ryan Blaney, Kyle Larson, and Angie Allmendinger. And we could also put a couple drivers in there like Stenhouse and Biffle. I just think it's a lot more interesting than the chase bubble standings, as I'm going to call them, compared to a year ago. And so this is going to be one thing I'm going to be looking forward to over the next. I think we have 8 more races left to go until the chase starts. And really, because it's kind of hard to predict who's really going to fill out those final few spots, because I don't see us having more than 16 winners. So definitely there are going to be quite a bit of drivers making it on points. So it's definitely going to be quite the battle to watch. Last year, a lot of the talk about Roush Family Racing was things like how much they're struggling, when are they going to turn around, are they ever going to turn around. And this year, I think they have turned the page in the right direction, and the stats prove it. I mean, look at Trevor Bayne. Last year at this point, he was like around 30 points. Now he is he's not far away from making the chase. In fact, let's say if Tony Stewart never won at Sonoma, he would actually hold on to the bottom spot in the chase. So I think there's definitely there's a good chance that Trevor Bayne could make the chase, and that would be huge for him and Roush. He seems to be the best driver out at Roush that has or the most realistic shot among the Roush drivers to make the chase at this point. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., he has shown flashes of improvement compared to the last 2 years. And Greg Biffle, he started out the season really poor, didn't score top 10 at all in the first 16 races. Then at Daytona, wins his first pole in almost 4 years, gets his first top 10 of the year, last week at Daytona, all 3 Roush cars finished into the top 10 for the first time in almost 2 years, and Greg Biffle now has back-to-back top 10s. So things are definitely looking good for the future. Is definitely a brighter future for Roush family racing than where they were a year ago. At the same time, another multi-car team is in a slump, and that is Hendrick Motorsports. And the reason why I say that is, well, take a look at the stats, and I'll tell you some of them. So we're now officially halfway through the season, and this organization only has 2 career wins. Both of them came from Jimmy Johnson, and both of them came also early in the season. Race 2 at Atlanta, race 5 at Fontana. And really, it's sort of been throughout the whole season, but really, in the past month or two, it's become apparent that they're not where I think they can be. It should be. And if you look at the point standings, Chase Elliott is 8th, Jimmy Johnson is 9th, Dale Earnhardt Jr. is 13th, Casey Kane is 17th. This is not very Hendrick. But the thing is, and if we look at Kentucky, Jimmy Johnson got loose early, hit the wall, finished outside the top 10 for, I think it's, okay. So if you look at the past, I think it's the past like 8 or 9 races, he's finished into the top 10 only in one of them. Chase Elliott got caught up in a wreck with Ryan Blaney, finished 31st. Casey Kane finished 14th. Dale Earnhardt Jr. finished 13th. So a very un-Hendrick type of weekend. Now, is it because of bad luck, performance, or both? I think the answer is both, because it really depends on the driver. Jimmy Johnson tends to struggle in the summer, so in a way, this is not very surprising. Chase Elliott, wrong place in the wrong time. But then you have to look at performance, but then you also have to look at performance, like for example, like Casey Kane's performance, who Casey Kane, I feel like has just been a non-factor for the win, and for at least a few years now, it feels like, on a weekly basis, and is just outside of making the chase again. Dale Earnhardt Jr., he's just had a very up and down season, but it seems like that when Dale Earnhardt Jr. does not have like a good car, he's just sort of edging around, not edging, just simply hanging around the outside of the top 10. And last year he was like 10 positions higher in the point standings than where he is right now. Chase Elliott is currently the leader of Hendrick Motorsports, obviously the highest driver in the point standings, has more top 5s and top 10s than anyone else, I believe, and has shown this season a couple times that he can win races, but even now he has gone on a bad streak, finishing outside the top 20, I think for 3 races in a row now. So it'll be interesting to see if this slump is going to continue or if it will turn around. Often, when the chase comes around, it can really just sort of like magically turn a season around. I mean, look at Jeff Gordon last year. In the latter stages of the race, we had a caution, and it was our final caution with about 70-something laps to go, and everyone came down pit road. Martin Truex Jr. entered the pit second behind Kevin Harvick and left the pits in first place, and so he would have restarted as the leader, but was penalized. And what was he penalized for? Passing on pit road, and it ended up being a controversial penalty with Truex going on to say, like, I don't know what I was doing differently. I think I've done that every other week. So definitely some confusion and controversy. Truex was definitely not pleased with NASCAR, and he said he is going to talk to them about it. And who knows? And who knows whether this will be talked about more, or whether we'll be seeing more drivers get penalized for this. Basically, I don't have a replay for you, but you might have already seen it, or you might see one in the coming days. So I think the rule is so apparently I guess there is a rule somewhere in NASCAR's rulebook that you can't pass on pit road, or at least to the inside. I think there's a rule. I think in the rule book, you can pass on the outside, but not on the inside. Obviously, because if you can pass on the inside, that's gaining an advantage. But honestly, it didn't look like. But Truex said that he was not trying to intentionally pass Kevin Harvick, but rather speed up to get to his pit stall. Which really, when I think back to the replay, it's like I've seen many other drivers do that. I don't know what Truex did differently, so I do agree with him about that. Obviously for Truex and his fans, this penalty I think really killed his chances of winning the race, because Truex once again came to a mile-and-a-half track having a really fast car. He led a lot of laps, and I think his penalty basically killed his chances of winning the race. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of this. We have come to the ending stages of this race review, so let's wrap up Kentucky. Definitely not as good of a race as I wished it was, but of course, we obviously had things like a new service, which of course new services always, or most of the time, tend to dull up the racing and just not make it as good as it once was. But I think that under Kentucky's unique configuration, this track will likely be a great track in 10 years from now. Once the group gets wide out, the service gets rough, abrasive, bumpy. So I think we're just gonna have to wait a while for Kentucky to become a great track. And also, Keselowski continues his hot streak now back to back, and we head to Loudon next week, where he has the second best average finish among all active drivers, and has a win there. 2 years ago, July race 2014, and he won the race in dominating fashion. So I expect Keselowski to be good there as well. And so it wouldn't surprise me if he wins next week. And but going back to Kentucky a little bit, one thing, just like I said at the beginning, definitely a race that won't be forgotten for at least a while. But now let's turn our heads towards Loudon, or some like to call it New Hampshire Motor Speedway, a track that has had a bad rap for a long time, because many people, including myself, can consider New Hampshire a track that usually puts on very stale racing. Hopefully the load hours package, and I think Goodyear's bringing a new tire, hopefully one that wears out more. Hopefully it can fix Loudon a little bit, because I think Loudon definitely can put on good races, but I think the rules package, I think the aero packages the last several years have just kept us from seeing that. And when it comes to Loudon, Loudon races can be many things. It can be a field knowledge race. It can be a track position race. It can be a wreck fest. So really, it's not exactly easy to predict how these Loudon races will be. But hopefully it's a race that has varying strategies, and maybe also because track position is huge at Loudon, it can give us a good chance to see some underdogs shine well for next week's race. But we'll just have to see. I already mentioned about how Keselowski, I think, is going to be a favorite for next Sunday, and I just mentioned why. As far as other drivers, well, if you look at average finishes, Denny Hamlin has the best average finish. Jimmy Johnson, Tony Stewart, Atkins, Kyle Larson, Carl Edwards, Ryan Newman, Austin Dillon, Kevin Harvick. That completes the top 10. And the driver that I'm going to go for, I'm going to go with Carl Edwards. I know that last year he won both poles at that track in both of its races, and ran well in both of them, I believe. And so I think Carl Edwards will finally has he won Loudon? Actually, no. Loudon is one of the two tracks that he's not won at. So I think Carl Edwards will get that first win at the New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Be sure to rate, comment, subscribe, and bye.